All right, where were we? I had to take a call from Mr. Sorry, I had to take a call from Mr. Props. Was he still? All right, phone's being weird. So yeah, where were we? Sequence of notes, right? Scale, like I was getting to, is a sequence of 8 notes. Not always, but the scales that we're going to be talking about today are. And I mentioned major and minor are the 2 biggies, and we're going to cover minor scales later. Let's just focus on major scales today. And the most basic example of a major scale is C, the C major scale. Now, as far as what keys to hit with what fingers, don't pay attention to what I'm doing, because I kind of am just using my index finger or whatever. You should probably go online and watch like actual tutorials on YouTube of how to like do proper hand positions and stuff. I kind of taught myself how to play, and my hand positions are all wrong, so don't learn from me in that respect. But so let's go back to our scale. So like I mentioned, the C scale, also called C major, and it's 8 notes: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now notice I can go up or down either direction, and sometimes we can put them together here. And so when I was in band class in high school, we'd actually play that up and down, ascending and descending, and we'd play the top note once, so it'd sound like this. So that's a scale. So now C natural, and actually all these notes are natural. We're not going to the sharps and flats, the black keys, but it's C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. That's your C scale. So we can actually a couple of things to talk about here. One, the 8th note of that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, is another C, right? So that we started on C and we ended on C up here. This is the 8th note. This is called an octave, this interval here. Octave, O-C-T-A-V-E. Now you notice the first 3 letters are oct, O-C-T, and that prefix means 8. Like an octopus has 8 tentacles, and an octagon is a geometric shape with 8 sides. October used to be the 8th month on the calendar. Now it's the 10th month. But anyway, oct means 8, so an octave is the 8th note of the scale, or that interval between the first and the 8th note. We can go into a little bit of physics. The big thing about an octave is that the frequency is twice that of the original note. So here I'm playing it through the keyboard, so it's all like zeros and ones. It's all like a digital signal. But if I was playing on like a guitar, we had an acoustic instrument that had something vibrating in it, we would have actually I'll pick A, these 2 notes. So you'd have like this note vibrating on the guitar, or even on the piano where the hammer's hitting the string on the piano, and that's producing a sound like it's a sine wave, and this note up here is producing a sine wave that's going twice as fast. So the A above middle C is 440 hertz, or 440 cycles per second of vibration in the air. And if you bumped it up to 880 cycles, you hit the higher A. And then 1760, which I think is 880 times 2, is that A up there. So if this is 440, then this is 220, this is 110, this is 55, and what, 27 and a half? So that kind of goes into a little bit of the physics, because we're talking about the sine wave produced by the vibrating string in a piano or on a guitar or whatever. And then you can look up the frequencies for all the different notes, like Wikipedia or something. There's different, obviously, different intervals for each of the notes. And some of the intervals sound dissonant, or like they don't really get along too well. There's 1, C, and D. or C and D flat, or D flat also called C sharp. So we can hear how that sounds like dissonant. I'm turn this up a little bit. So that sounds dissonant, but pure octave sounds very what we call consonant, or notes that get along together well. And it's probably because of that physics property where they're, the higher frequency is vibrating twice as fast as the lower one. These two frequencies are close but not exact, and that's why they don't sound good. They sound very dissonant. We could take this up an octave too, and you can hear how dissonant that high C sharp is with the C. But if I take this and take it up a half step so they're both C sharp, it sounds very pure, very pleasant. And likewise, I can take it down and play C's. So, what else? Another thing I was thinking of when I was coming up with this lesson, speaking of physics, each note you play, and I don't know if this is true for the keyboard, but it's true for other instruments like the guitar and piano. When you play a note, you're not playing just a note. You're actually playing a whole series of notes, but of those, or series of frequencies. But of all those frequencies, one of those frequencies is more dominant, and that's what you hear. So if you were to play on an actual piano a C, the string inside the piano is vibrating at different points along the string at different frequencies, or producing different frequencies. And so you would hear like this, you hear, I think, this note, this. All those frequencies are being played at the same time, but at different volumes, and the loudest one is your fundamental, your second loudest one is this one, your third loudest one is this one. And so there's other weird notes up here you don't really hear at all. And I think maybe when you fiddle around with the EQ on your stereo, you're adjusting some of these higher ones that you typically don't hear, which is how the sound gets affected. But I'm kind of digressing into the physics of sound, which I should probably stick to scales. And so going back to scales, so let's go. We had C. So when you're playing in the key of C, you can expect to see any of those 8 notes, or actually seven unique pitches, because 8 is the same as 1. They're both C. So any of the 7, you can expect to see any of those in the song, and they're all going to go well with the C chord. And you'll learn about chords later. So what about other scales, like other major scales? So we can look at G. We can go. Now here I played all the white keys from G to G, but it didn't quite work out right? We got, which is good so far, but then we hit, that note's wrong. What about F? We definitely have a wrong note there. That note's way wrong. It doesn't really work well. So how do we know what notes to use with what scales? Well, there's a formula for it, right? So we go look again at our C scale, and there's things called steps, which I can talk about here. Any note between, like, in the next note above it, or to the right on the keyboard, whichever note sounds above it, is a half step. So if C to C sharp or D flat, because it's C sharp or D flat, it's the same key, two different names. It's a half step, and from here to here is a half step. So from C to D is a whole step, because 2 halves make a whole. So 1, 2, that's a half step. We can go D to E is 2 half steps, or 1 whole step, right? 1, 2. From D up 1, up another one. And then C would be 2 whole steps down from E, right? 1, 2 whole steps. So going from E, now it gets tricky, right? Because there's no black key in between there. So F is actually 1 half step above E, and 1 whole step above E would be F sharp or G flat, because it's 1 note or 1 key, 1 piano key. two different names, F sharp or G flat, because sharp means above, flat means below, and so it sounds higher than F, so it's F sharp, but it also sounds lower than G, so it's G flat. And I'll go over in a little bit when to call it flat and when to call it sharp, when to call it F sharp or when to call it G flat. Alright, so I kind of lost my, I don't even know how I got there. Oh, let's talk about steps and steps and half and whole steps. So let's go back to C, and there's a formula to figure out what notes go in the major scale. So when we look at this, we go whole, start from C, go up a whole step, right, 1, 2, and up another whole step, which is a half step, right, to get to E. So whole step, half, whole step, half, right? So 2 holes and a half, 3 holes and a half, and that, with a half step being between B and C. Whole step, half, whole step, half. Now if you go to G, we go up a whole step, half, good. Then a whole step, half. There we go. So the F sharp is our new note. And so in the key of G, the notes are G, A, B, C, D, E. Jump to F sharp, G. So G and C scales there. Now you'll notice that first we started with the C scale. Then we played a G scale, and I actually played it down here. I could have played it up here. And the G is the 5th note of the C scale, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is our new key signature for G. And so this leads to something called a circle of fifths. And I'm going to bring it up here on my tablet. I'm trying to do this with one hand here. Alright, and you could Google this. This is like one of the most basic things in music. It's very easy to find online. You could just do an image search online for circle of fifths, and it brings this up. So here's all the key signatures that are available. Notice at the bottom G flat and F sharp are the same, occupy the same space. They're basically the same key, written 2 different ways, because F sharp and G flat are the same note. Yeah, B, E, A, D, G. So we went from C to G. We went from like 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock there, and that was up a fifth. G meaning G was the 5th note of the C scale. Hence the name circle of fifths, because as we go around, it's like the relationship's a fifth. So D is the 5th note of G, and we can check it, right? So we can go G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's D, right? So our new scale is D. So what's our new note? Whole step, half. Whole step, half. So now we're adding a C sharp. So now you know 3 scales: C, G, and D. And it's good to know the scales because they tell you what notes to use together. So you can, when you're playing in D, you don't actually like hit this note, which sounds wrong, or like this note. You're playing along the key of D, and all of a sudden you hit like that doesn't sound right. See, A flat doesn't belong in the key of D. Key of D is D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. These notes don't belong in that key, so they're going to sound a bit weird. But these notes do belong in the key of D, so they're going to sound good. Now sometimes you can play a wrong note and have it sound good depending on the context. Like we could be playing C as in cat, and then play like E sharp or E chord, and that G sharp is going to be out of the key of C. It's not in the key of C, but it still sounds good because the E, it makes it sound brighter than what we'd expect. But anyway, we can go into that when we cover chords maybe. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else to cover. I mentioned we can build chords from scales, which we'll do later, but even if you don't learn chords, you can still play music knowing your scales. We covered D, right? Let's take it going down. Now, instead of playing each note the same length, let's add a little bit of rhythm to it. Hey, it's Joy of the World. We played a song using a scale. So, there you have it. I don't know if there's anything else I'm going to add at this time. Maybe just practice C, G, and D, and we'll cover the other scales later. Because there's 12 different scales, and you factor in that there's major and minor scales. That makes it 24. 12 major, 12 minor. Your major scales are your happy sounding. We'll cover minor later, but those are more like your more angry, serious, sad sounding scales. But that's for another lesson. One other thing, since I mentioned talking about key signatures and scales. So if you're playing in the key of D, instead of actually I'll use the key A here because I'm about to show you a song that's in the key A, which actually we can cover that right now. In that key, D is the next one after. I'm sorry, A is the next one after D, so it's going to be the fifth note, right? D, E, F sharp, G, A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's our next scale, and the notes. Whole step, half, whole step, half. So our new note's G sharp. And you might be noticing a pattern. Each time we add a new sharp, it's the seventh note, right? We start off with C, where there was no sharps, it was all natural. Then we went to G, and our new note was F sharp. F sharp. Then we went to D. That new note was C sharp. Now we're in A. I'm sorry. So our newest sharp is G sharp. I'm going to throw in a little sidebar here before I continue on with what I was originally going to say. How do we know when to call this G sharp or when to call it A flat? I mean, it's the same note, two different names, right? It's above G, so it's G sharp, and it's below A, so it's A flat. How do we know what to call it? And this is what I realized later after I started music. I think I realized this when I was covering key signatures with lots of sharps or lots of flats. And from my observation, it looks like you can imagine it as like something with lots of slots. Like you have 7 notes in the scale. We're doing A, so I'll just do A here. And we have 7 unique notes because, again, the 8th note is the same as the first. You're both A. So 4, 5, 6, 7, and then again that repeats A. So we have 7 unique notes, and I kind of visualize it as like you have an A slot, a B slot, a C slot, and etc. all the way up to the G, and you got to put notes into these slots. And so we have A natural filling the A slot, B natural filling the B slot, C sharp filling the C slot, etc. So we wouldn't call this like A flat because we already have an A natural occupying the A slot, and we would have nothing occupying the G slot, right? If we want A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, A flat, A, there's no G there, and we have two notes in the A slot, A flat and A, so that can't be right. So we'll call it G sharp. That way we have a G, it's sharp, we have an A, which is natural. So now we have something occupying each slot. We have an A, we have a B, we have a C that's sharp, we have a D, we have an E, we have an F that's sharp, we have a G that's sharp, we have an A. So we have something for each letter, for each note name. Some are natural, some are sharp, but each are represented. So, and also a little spoiler alert, typically when you're playing scales that start on the white keys, they're going to be called sharps, not flats. And if you start on a key that's a black key, they're going to be flat. So like this is A flat, B flat, C, D flat, E flat, F, G, A flat. You're never going to have sharps and flats in the same key signature. It's all either going to be sharps or flats. And so this one, since it starts on a black key, it's going to be A flat, B flat, C, D flat, E flat, F, G, A flat. So we're calling these flats. And this would be, and when you start on A, since it's a white key, they're going to be sharps. A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. Kind of a little trick there. There is one exception, which is F. F is a white key, but the one black key played is a flat. It's B flat, F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. So that's the exception. So anyway, yeah, back to what I was originally going to say before we hit that sidebar. So let's say we're playing the key A, right? 3 sharps, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. And the composer is not going to write sharp signs for every C sharp, F sharp, and G sharp. There's a much easier way to do that, and that's with the key signature. So here we'll pull up a Green Day, Brain Stew, right? Yeah, you know the song probably. And so we see this key signature right there, and the sharp signs are above the on the F sharp, C space, and the G line. So that tells us that F, C, and G are all sharp. Of course, if you couldn't tell what lines the sharp signs are on, A is the only key with 3 sharps. So when you see 3 sharps, it's an A. So putting a key signature up front is kind of like a shorthand way of doing things, because it tells the performer that all F's, C's, and G's in the entire piece are sharp. So you don't have to mark all the F's, C's, and G's throughout the piece and put little sharp signs next to each one. The key signature at front, which is actually at the beginning of each line as well as we go down the page, tells us that all F's, C's, and G's are sharp, unless there's an exception. And here we actually have one. That's a natural sign on a G. So G would normally be sharp, but there's an exception. We call that an accidental. That tells us that in this particular case, this G is natural, and that the accidental holds true for the rest of the measure. So here we have a little measure line right there coming all the way down. So from that little natural sign through the rest of the measure, all G's are sharp, unless there's another little sharp sign taking us back to G's being sharp. Yeah, all G's are natural. All G's are natural unless there's another little sharp sign telling us that we're back to being with G's being sharp. Now, the rule is once you hit the measure line that we're back to the original key signature here. So any A or any G's that would appear here in this measure and throughout the rest of the piece are going to be sharp, unless otherwise noted. Here we have some natural signs with F and C telling us that starting from where the natural signs appear through the rest of the measure, that those notes are going to be natural, unless somebody threw a sharp sign back in there to let us know that we're going back to F and C being sharp. So hopefully I didn't make that too confusing. Just know, and my thing's getting in front of my camera, just know that there's a key signature up front telling you what key to play, which tells you when to play naturals or when to play sharps. Here, all our F's, C's, and G's are going to be sharp. So, there you have it.